what do we have to do to encourage the individual to understand that we, the people,
I know.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. What I was about to say is I'm a little bit different on this because I'm an integralist. I'm an integral theorist, and
well, could you
I
say a
believe,
little bit what that means?
Yeah, I was about to say it. That means that I believe in that our worldviews are framed by our development. That human development and psychological development is really critical in terms of how we see the world and ourselves and what we do and our ability to do things. So I would say that that's a difficult question because we can't, that's what I'm saying, we cannot create these standard models and boxes to say, okay, this is how you get from A to Z. As Dr. Patton was talking about in the Martin Luther King lecture today, is that, it's more complex. You can't there's no linear model to be able to do this. And if we do this, we'll get this outcome. That's not the case because of the fact that people have so many worldviews depending on their developmental level and so many ways of seeing things, and it's not even constant in one individual. One individual may have different ways of seeing things across, because they're developed differently, across different lines of their being. Like, for instance, in spirituality, say, you might be very well developed, whereas cognitively you may not be, or in terms of morals you may be well developed, where in terms of leadership, say, you may not be as developed, or you may be more developed, or you may be well developed in leadership and not in morals. So that would, those two things would kind of conflict. So we can't, what I'm saying is we can't make any sense. I can't say, here's a way I can get all people to do and to realize and recognize certain things. I think we have to look at where the person is, what their worldview is, how they relate to things, and then maybe and then understand how to develop what's needed in that regard. And that's why I keep saying, going back to the individuality of stuff, and we tend to want to group and do stuff for a whole bunch of people across the board and do one way, one kind of training, one kind of education, one kind of, and that is impossible.
So then how do you...
I mean, it's possible, we're doing it, but then we get the kind of world we have. So where we have 20, or whatever the number was you said, that,
So then how do you help the individual, but yet understand that there's a big picture and you can't really work, and then still have standards? In other words, with all of that diversity, can you really have any standard in which it said this is acceptable? And
it's a difficult thing to do. It isn't easy. That's a great question, and it's possible, but it takes someone that has the first of all, the ability to see that, so they have to have a particular kind of worldview and perspective, and also then has the skill, because just because you have the understanding doesn't mean you got the skill to do it. Mm-hmm. Roosevelt Thomas's work was a lot around that, because what he always said was, what the role of a leader is to create and maintain an environment where each person can reach the most potential, and the dynamics in that environment can produce the best outcomes, the maximum outcomes, the maximum. But that's not easy. When he used to go into organizations and try to help people learn how to do this, it's not easy to do that.
And then what do you do today when the environment is the world, it's the globe, it's the internet,
right? It's complex.
But then what's the solution?
I think in a lot of ways, well, first of all, we always want a solution. We always want it resolved immediately. I don't believe that that's necessarily so. Sometimes we need to live in pain. And, sometimes we need to have things that are not working the best way that, that they can work. I mean, I didn't particularly want to get ill, but it was probably the best thing that could have happened to me because I have a whole different perspective. Okay, so so sometimes we live in pain, and that pain is the catalyst for doing things. You know how in Alcoholics Anonymous they talk about hitting bottom. Sometimes you got to hit bottom before you can really have a new view of things.
I know.
And I don't know that we can do something to fix things the way we want to kind of fix things. As humans, we tend to want to, just protect everything. Just, what can we do, for instance, with the school shoots? Oh, now we're going to put all the police officers and armed folks in the schools, and, that's because, so we can fix it and keep it from happening again, and that's probably not going to,
That's another issue. Do you think, because first of all, well, in other words, with this assault weapon ban and things like that, I mean, in my opinion, somebody who does that is going to find a way to get a gun or a grenade or whatever.
If that is the world that you live in, if that is your worldview and that is your center of gravity and that's where you are as an individual, yes, you will find another way. Exactly the point. So there's but our need to fix it, Wilbur calls it our immortality project. That we're always trying to keep from dying. So we're trying to find ways to put ourselves, put a box around ourselves, put ourselves in a, one of those cellars where, you can close up everything, keep the world away, and make sure we got enough guns. So if anything, that's what we do to try to protect ourselves as humans. It's part of our human nature.
And
at least at certain levels of development.
What do you do about a situation like that? Because I don't really think
you do what you do depending on your particular worldview and perspective. That's
what about when it's a community and it's the country and it's a national issue?
You do what you do. There are different responses to what goes on in the world depending on where you are, again, in your human development. For example, the reason that we continue to have wars is because we have individuals that are operating from that mindset, and we always will, because there will always be somebody that's operating from that mindset, because human development is, it goes along, and everybody starts at square one. So everybody that's born starts at square one in terms of development, and so you're always going to have somebody that wants to fight a war. However, there's a curve, and so as you go along in development, there are more and evolution. There are more and more people that are at a higher level of development. So therefore, they get to thinking differently. So they're getting to be fewer and fewer people that are the warrior types, and more people that maybe are more intellectual types, or the types that want to come back and think about these social issues and care about people and stuff like that. So your center of care and concern, your span of inclusion, grows as you become more developed. And so as that happens, then we continue to look at, what is it that we can do? How can we do it? But again, we always want to know how can we fix it. And, at the point that I am right now, I'm not so concerned about whether we can fix it or nor do I know whether we can or whether we need to be even concerned about that. But I think that as we work where we are and where we're given opportunities, then that's what we do. And some of us are given opportunities to make an impact on a huge level, something like Oprah, for instance. Some of us are, given opportunities to make an impact on a smaller scale, but it's just as important. I don't think one is more important than the other, because everything affects the whole.